pleasure of the invocation.
Yes, sir. Standing.
Yes, ma'am. And we'll follow with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Heavenly Father, we come to you today, God. Thank you for your love, your grace, and your tender mercy. God, we invite your presence and your guidance into this meeting. We ask that you bless each one that's present today. Continue to bless our community, God, and allow the work that we do bring glory to you. God, we thank you for all that you've done for us. Thank you for what you're doing, and thank you for what we know you're going to do. In Jesus' mighty name we do pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. I know we've got 4 of us up here. There are 3 on Zoom. Is that right?
We have Mr. Bass, Ms. Bowles, Ms. Hartlow should be on.
All right.
Can you see if they can hear us?
Can y'all all hear?
I can hear you.
Yeah.
I think I heard. Okay. We're 3 for 3. In accordance with the Freedom of Information Act, Chapter 4, Title 30, Code of Laws of South Carolina, 1976, an agenda has been posted on the front door of City Hall, and notification of this meeting has been given to the news media. We established a quorum, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. All right, what do we have up first?
Approval of, you know what? First up, new employee introductions. So this evening we have actually 5 employees, so we would like to introduce you all. And first I'm going to recognize Kelly McWhorter, Director of Discover Greenwood.
Well, you're not a new employee.
She's an oldie but a goodie.
Members of council, mayor, good evening. I'd like to introduce to you formally Leanne Hunt. She's been a member of our team for quite some time. We haven't been able to make introductions, but Leanne comes to us formerly an intern with the city of Greenwood. She helped us with 2 festivals of discovery, so she already had her feet wet a little bit when we got started. She is the marketing coordinator.
I think it's really for the video feed.
She now serves as the marketing coordinator. She handles all social media for both Discover Greenwood and Uptown Greenwood and does a great job doing that. She is a graduate of Piedmont Technical College and is going to pursue her bachelor's degree in English and marketing from the University of South Carolina soon. She loves shopping local, and I found that out. And she loves supporting local events, so we're happy to have her. She's a great asset for our team.
Great. Welcome officially, Leanne. She's, if y'all are into social media, she and Gibson are always having a good time on there.
She's also sometime dog sitter.
I have to keep that in mind.
No, don't, because then more you use her, the less I can use. All right, next up, I'm going to recognize Eric Leary. He is going to introduce Mr. Robert Hurst.
Good evening, Council, Mayor. Tonight we just have one employee to introduce, Mr. Robert Hurst. He was with us a few years back. He is one of our commercial drivers for sanitation, and we are very happy to have him back. He's been a really good employee for us.
Great. Welcome, Robert. Glad to have you back.
It's not easy to find employees willing to work that schedule to drive those commercial trucks, so we're grateful to have Robert on.
Just out of curiosity, what is that schedule?
What's your schedule, Robert?
3 to 1.
Yeah, I imagine that's tough. Well, thank you.
But this is afternoon off, right?
That's true.
Mr. Logan Dixon could not be with us tonight, so we will get him next time. And then Chief Shadowan, is Mr. Adams here tonight? He's tied up. He's tied up. Okay. So I also want to, who's not listed here is Mike. If you could come up here for a minute, I want to introduce council to Mike Hodge. For those of you who don't know Mike, he has been with our city shop for like 26 years. 28 years.
Slim down.
I didn't want to slight you there. And so, you know, Lynn Bryan retired on January the 7th, and Mikey stepped seamlessly into his role as our shop superintendent. So he manages all our fleet maintenance, and it takes a special kind of niche person that can work on fire trucks, garbage trucks, police cars, and any and all equipment we have. And so we're looking forward to seeing where Mike's going to take our shop in the future. So, Mike Hodge, thank you.
Mike? Thank you, Mike. You got big shoes to fill, but you look forward to it, yeah.
Next on the agenda is approval of the consent agenda.
All right, if anybody's reviewed that, I will entertain a motion.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Miller, second by Ms. Hutto. Any further discussion regarding the consent agenda? All in favor of approval of the consent agenda physically present? Mr. Bass?
I approve.
Ms. Bowles? You might have to take it off mute. Ms. Bartlow?
Approve.
Thank you. That vote carries unanimously with 7 votes.
All right, we have 2 public hearings this evening. I'm not going to read this is quite lengthy title, but our first public hearing will be to consider Ordinance 22-001, and this is rezoning 6 parcels, 4 on West Cambridge and 1 on West Calhoun from general commercial Greenwood Main Street corridor overlay to office professional in the same overlay, and 1 parcel at 356 West Cambridge from general commercial to office professional. Second reading and public hearing. I'll recognize Phil or Draper. I saw somebody. There's Draper. If council has any questions.
Sure. Good evening, Greg.
So what questions do you have?
I know this is second reading, and so I think we kind of have anything else we need to know. Does anybody have any questions for Draper? Anybody on the phone have any questions for him? Anything you wanted to add?
I think it's pretty straightforward as we explained a month ago, so.
Thank you. We got an easy one there. Is there anybody that wishes to speak in favor of proposed ordinance number 22-001? Let the record reflect there are none. Is there anyone that wishes to speak in opposition to proposed ordinance number 22-001? Let the record reflect there are none. Do I hear a motion?
Motion to approve. Second.
We have a motion by Ms. Hutto, second by Mr. Abels. Any further discussion regarding proposed ordinance number 22-001? All in favor of ordinance number 22-001? Ms. Bartlow?
Approve.
Ms. Bowles?
Approve.
Mr. Bass?
Approve.
Motion carries unanimously with 7 votes.
All right, for our next public hearing, I'd like to recognize Mr. Frank Rainwater. He's the Executive Director of South Carolina Revenue and Fiscal Affairs Office, and he is here for a presentation regarding the redistricting process. So he's going to give a presentation of the process, how that's going to go, a timeline, and then we will have an opportunity for public comment. So if you'll just bear with me for 1 second, we have to do a little switcheroo.
Is he via Zoom?
He is.
Okay.
So I'm a trusty sidekick this here tonight, so I don't mess it up.
Can you all see our screen?
Yes, we can see it.
Perfect.
Are y'all in front of the seats?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what he said.
So
Mr. Rainwater, yes, sir. Good evening. We'll recognize you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. It's a pleasure to be with you tonight. My name is Frank Rainwater. I am the Executive Director of the Revenue and Fiscal Affairs Office. I am assisted by Mr. Adam DeMars, who is one of our GIS specialists in the office and helping on redistricting. We are just two of the people who work on this project. We have a team of statisticians, research analysts, and others who are helping us with this presentation. Thank you for the opportunity for allowing our office to help with you. You are one of about 7 entities so far in this cycle we are helping with their redistricting process. What I want to share with you tonight is a little bit about what redistricting is, what it's required, and point out some of the issues you have to consider. This is also an opportunity for the public to be more aware of what this is about and what the requirements are. Ultimately, council is going to have to adopt a new plan sometime a little bit later this year before your filing opens for the next election cycle. Our goal is to help educate you and the public so you embrace a plan that you feel like is best for the city of Greenwood. This should not be a plan what I tell you or what we tell you is good or what somebody else. You need to take all the facts in consideration, and you're going to have to balance 3 different criteria. And that's what we want to walk through tonight and explain to you. Mr. Mayor, I can take questions at any time, or if you want to save questions at the end, it's just kind of whatever works for best for you and council.
Sure, thank you. We may jump in, but we'll turn it over to you and try not to interrupt if we don't have to.
So in this plan, I believe it's been shared with you. There are 3 basic areas we're going to talk about tonight. The first one is the requirement of 1 person, 1 vote. That's a requirement under the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment. We're going to talk to you and walk through some numbers there for you to understand. We're also going to talk about the Voting Rights Act and that requirement, which is designed to protect the interest of the racial minority. We're going to talk to you about what we see there and what that analysis involves. And then we're also going to talk about something called traditional redistricting principles. These first couple of items on 1 person, 1 vote in the Voting Rights Act are some statistical measures we can look in this office. But these other areas involve some consideration on your part. And we're going to talk about those in specific in a little bit. Well, let's turn over to the next page, page 3 of 6. And I'm going to talk more about what the 14th Amendment and 1 person, 1 vote means. What we have for you is the new census data for each one of your 6 council districts. And we have that data depicted on the right side of the graph. And we can show you that based upon the new census, the 2020 census, the ideal population or the target population for each of your districts should be 3,758 people. Based on the census, though, you've got 3 districts, districts 1, 2, and 3, that are below that ideal. And districts 4, 5, and 6 are above that ideal. The responsibility of redistricting is to try to equalize that population. In this process, we're ultimately going to move some people out of districts 4, 5, and 6 and move those into districts 1, 2, and 3. Let's look more specifically at the table on the left. We have the actual numbers there for you. And for example, District 1 is under by 355 people. District 2 is under by 324 people. District 3 is under by 486. And then you see the amounts that districts 4, 5, and 6 are over. What 1 person, 1 vote means, people who are understand, is we try to equalize the population, or basically equalize the voices that each one of your council members represent. In the simplistic world, let's say you only had 2 districts, and let's say 1 district had 100 people and 1 district had 200 people. Well, that district with 100 people, those voices count twice as much as somebody in a district with 200 people, because it only takes 100 voices to be heard by 1 council, or 100 voices maybe to elect that person, as opposed to that district had 200 people, there's twice as many voices being heard. So under the principle of one person, one vote, you won't try to equalize that and have two districts of 150 people. Well, we try to encourage districts or councils to get to as close as possible. But the courts do not require local governments to have that mathematical perfection. You have a range there, and it's called deviation. It's basically the range between your highest district that's over and your lowest district that's under. And in this particular case, District 3 is the lowest district, the lowest populated district. They're 13% below. District 6 is your highest populated area at 12.5%. So when you look at that range there between the lowest and highest, that's a range of 25.55%, or that's called the deviation. The courts have said you have to be below 10%. We have a recommendation that you try to get to 5%. That is a recommendation. As we go through this presentation, you may find that 5% may be sufficient. You may think that 9% is necessary. But it's one of the factors that you have to balance in going forth under this. So the first element there is try to equalize the population as much as possible within a given set of parameters. So the next thing we're going to talk about is the Voting Rights Act. So what we have here are your demographic statistics by your racial categories, by your Voting Rights Act. So we go by the Department of Justice definition of black constituents when we do this analysis. So if you look over toward the left-hand side of that first graph where it says percent NH/DOJ black, that is the percentage of your population in each district that meets the Department of Justice definition of black. And in this case, you've got some pretty distinct examples. You have three areas, districts 1, 2, and 3, that are majority minority districts. That means the majority of those districts are made up by the minority population. What the Voting Rights Act requires, it has a three-part step. You have to try to protect the voting interest of the racial minority. What that means is you have to ensure that minorities have the opportunity to elect a candidate of their choice. And the first criterion looking at that is we have to look at the compactness of this district. And in this area, you have three areas, districts 1, 2, and 3, where the minority population is compact and represents the majority of the district. So in our analysis, we would work or recommend you try to preserve those as much as possible. You would not want to have a dramatic change there. Now, that's being said, we've got to try to equalize the population. And then a little unusual here, that your three areas that need to pick up population are all the minority areas. So you're going to have to pick up population from those districts 4, 5, and 6, which are minority white areas, and move into district 1, 2, and 3. Now, that's a balancing act. Under the 14th Amendment, under the Equal Protection, the courts have said you cannot use race as a predominant factor unless you have some very compelling interest to do so. So you have the 14th Amendment that says we cannot use race as a predominant factor, but then you have to balance that with the Voting Rights Act that says you have to protect the voting interests of the racial minorities. So it's a balancing act there. How far do you go and move the population without disrupting this current balance there? It's also interesting to note that under District 2, that you have the Hispanic community, which is a significant part of the population there. The white community is the smallest segment of that particular district. So when moving people around, we try not to upset these percentages. You want to respect those percentages. We've had some counties where that is difficult to achieve. This may not be too bad, but that's something that you just have to work through as you go through there. But the importance is you've got three areas that are majority minority districts, and it would be our goal to try to preserve those to the extent possible, given all these other factors that you have to consider. In looking at a majority minority district, we also have to look at voting age population. That's what DAP stands for. in the lower half. So when you're looking at that, we try to make sure the voting population in those districts stay in that majority area too. So those are two criteria. I need to also emphasize, one thing that has significantly changed from the last election is that, the last redistricting back in 2010, is that South Carolina is no longer under pre-clearance requirement by the Department of Justice. When you redistrict in 2010, you had to submit your plan to the Department of Justice for pre-clearance. And the Department of Justice was going to give an analysis, and they were going to sign off on your plan as meeting the Voting Rights Act. That is no longer a requirement. That provision was done away with by the Supreme Court several years ago. So my emphasis here is that we want really the city to embrace this plan. You have to take a hard look on how you balance all these factors, because if you get sued, if you adopt a plan, and if you get sued under the Voting Rights Act, you're going to have to explain to the courts why you did something. In prior years, you always had the defense that the Department of Justice signed off on it as far as the voting rights are concerned. But our emphasis here is to make sure you understand all these issues and adopt a plan that you feel is in the best interest for your city. So,
I have a question.
yes, ma'am.
Okay, so is it my understanding that you're saying that, for instance, NH White VAP, meaning that that's the number of white voters?
Yes,
in
but
the districts?
under the voting age population, yes. Whereas the
So
top.
that means that, okay, based on what you're saying is for the voting rights, but not for District 3,
Yes,
population-wise, you're saying that there's 693 population. But as far as voters, are you saying that's 597?
voting age population. I don't know how many, if all that voting population is registered or not, that's the difference.
Okay.
Okay? Okay, all right. Any other questions? All right, then the last thing I want to cover with you is far as what we call traditional redistricting principles. That is on page 6 of 6. So in our recommendations, in addition to the one person, one vote, we encourage you to have, like you're doing here, a public meeting to discuss this and solicit feedback from the public and give the public an opportunity. But when you look at these indented bullet points there, that there are some other requirements that your plan has to meet. One of them is that districts or wards have to be drawn contiguously, so that all parts of any district touches every other part of that district. In other words, you can't have a district that really looks like a checkerboard without any connection there. Now, I know you have some annexation, and you have some lines running to that, and that's fine. But basically, what you can't do is chop up your district and have one part in one area and then skip across to another part of the city for another area. Each ward, everything within each ward has to connect to every other part, has to connect to that ward. We also try to minimize splitting of voting precincts. This helps with your voter registration and minimizes confusion among the voters. In a city, that's not always easy because of the way you're geographically, because of your city boundaries. You have about 30 precincts, I understand, in the city of Greenwood. So we want to try to minimize the splitting of that. So when a voter goes into a precinct, there's less confusion. They get one ballot, but it will happen that some of your precincts are going to be split. And depending on where in that precinct you live, voters will get different ballots, but we try to minimize that. We try to make sure that districts or wards are geographically compact to the extent possible. Those are often difficult in the city, just the way, because of your annexation and the way things are transpire between the drawing of the redistricting. But we look at compactness. That is a test there. And then the most important part here is that last bullet point, and this is where really you have a lot of input. When we're drawing the maps or we're looking at these maps in Columbia, we're pretty good with statistics, and we can add and subtract very well. And we can look at one person, one vote, and we can look at the Voting Rights Act requirements. However, the courts have recognized two other principles that really you have a much better insight on that we don't have in Columbia. The first is looking at your core districts, and then also looking at your communities of interest. So we're going to draw a line here, or redraw the lines from your existing districts. But we don't have a good feel. We know what roads are being affected, but we don't have a good feel for what are communities of interest. And a community of interest could be a neighborhood, it could be a work area, it could be a church zone, it could be a socioeconomic group. There's no real definition, but it's up to you to determine, what are those communities of interest. And similarly, when we're having to move your districts around, you have some input on what is your core district. It is not our intent to take the heart out of a district and put those in two districts, but we may not recognize that simply by looking at a map. So it's best to have some input. Communities are especially interested in this. They don't like, a lot of areas, they don't understand why their communities are split and they vote for two different representatives. Well, that being said, the line will be drawn somewhere. And your lines are going to intersect, and there's going to be streets or areas where you have a representative on one side and a different representative or different council person on the other side. That's just the nature of what you're doing. You're drawing a line. But we need input from you to decide when we draw those lines, did we adversely affect any community of interest? Again, we're going to split some neighborhoods, we're going to split some groups, but it's best for you to tell us that up front while we're drawing this. When these issues have come up in courts, the courts give a lot more deference if you stayed up front before the lines are drawn, before the map is approved, why you want to keep certain communities of interest or certain core districts together. The courts have not been very fond of a post hoc justification that, if you get sued, well, why did you keep this area together? If there's nothing on the record about this, they're not very fond of that. So, we're going to work with you, working with these criteria and come up, but it does require some feedback from your part as we go through this process. So Mr. Mayor and members, that is the basic overview of what redistricting is and the basic data that we have. At this point, we have several options on how to proceed with you. Of the 70 entities we're working with, we're handling those a variety of ways. In some areas, this is all that we do, and we turn over our baseline files to your area, and then some areas have the technical staff, GIS staff, and the legal staff to help go through this with you. On the other extreme of that, we can provide you a map, and when we can get feedback from you, we can provide adjustments to that map. It's a give and take process. We provide our best analysis to you and let you provide feedback, and then you provide us additional comments, and we'll make adjustments accordingly to help you get to your final ordinance when you approach this. And then there are options in between. We can provide you an initial map and turn the initial map over to your staff, and let your staff and GIS people work with you and get feedback. And y'all can either tweak that yourself with GIS, or again, provide it back to us. So you have a variety of options. We're here to help you through that process. We can provide technical assistance and other assistance. If you tell us how best to work with you on this. And again, certainly I want to emphasize the importance of hearing from the public. The public should be given a chance to provide comments and feedback. And to the extent we can provide other information, we'll be glad to help you. So, Mr. Mayor and members, that is our presentation of, and if there are other questions at this time, I'll be glad to try to answer those.
Any questions from council?
You made a statement statement that you would be possibly providing, mapping if necessary. How soon would that take place?
Right now, we're at crunch time. The counties have to get this done before the middle of March. We can probably have well, two things. One, we can provide a map to you before then, is an initial map. The question is, do you want to provide us some feedback first? Different cities and counties do this different ways. We can provide you something to look at and let you react to, just knowing that it may not be perfect because we don't know what your communities and core districts are. But where we are right now, if you would give us, I'd say, a month, we could have an initial draft to you on that, to get started.
Okay, so in the meantime, we can draft our own.
Yes, I mean, we can provide the information, or if you want to take your existing maps and, you could tell us that, hey, this is the core part of my district. I know like districts 4, 5, and 6 have to give up. And that's kind of the key part there. We know we have to move people out of district 4, 5, and 6. So that's more important to know, what are those core parts, what are those communities of interest, because we're going to have to move people around. But also we want to hear from 1, 2, and 3. We know 1, 2, and 3 are going to have to add people, but whether or not we have to move between those districts, we just need that feedback. But it's, however, technology has made this a lot more simpler than it was 20 years ago. So there's a lot of GIS capability out there, but it's whatever works best for your area, given the timelines you want to work within.
So,
Okay, but I'm District 3, that's why I was inquiring. But I'm Ward 3,
right,
Yes.
yeah. Ms. Bowles,
yes.
the thought we had internally as a staff, which we've communicated, is that we're gonna have a public hearing tonight, but we're also gonna leave an opportunity for the next 30 days to receive public feedback. So we have a website where you can go online and you can submit your feedback in a questionnaire form, and it will go directly to Ryan. And on February the 25th at noon, we're gonna kind of say, okay, the public comment period is done. We're gonna compile all the comments that we received and then provide them to RFA. That includes any comments that city council may have specific to their wards. On the existing map, I feel like if council were to say, this neighborhood here is a neighborhood of importance to my ward and I would like to keep this neighborhood intact, that's information that RFA needs, so that as they start to crank out sort of an initial map, then it's as close as it's gonna be to the final, so that we don't have to have a lot of back and forth with them once the initial map is produced. That was my thought process.
That's fine. I just want to make sure that, we are all on the same page and that we do provide the information for the citizens to be able to give that input as well as council. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
And Mr. Rainwater, is there, and if you mentioned this and I missed it, I apologize, but is there, I'm just thinking of maybe some type of interactive mapping feature where we could go on and click on a line, move it a little bit just to see how we could feasibly capture the numbers that we need to. Is there anything like that exists that we could play around with?
Yes, if you're, I know the county level has it. I don't know, your access there, but certainly, that's what some entities do. Whether you have it there at the city level or can coordinate with your county, we can provide you basically the data files. And so, they can be pulled in. You can go in at your leisure. And that's an option that some people like, because if you're there in your town, in your city, you can go in at your convenience over the weeks and y'all can look at that. When we work with the city, we just ask for one, cities or counties, we just ask for one representative to work with, simply because of the workload and the timelines we're dealing with. But yes, data's available, and we can provide it to your city manager if y'all have the staff there, or the resources, or at the county level to go in to look at that.
I guess what you're talking about would be us getting on the GIS map to take a look at that? Is that what you mean?
Yes, sir, because I mean, all this data it's a mapping service through the GIS systems. And you can pull up the layers, and you can pull up the precincts, and you can pull up the road files in there. Some people don't understand the maps too well, without the road names in there. So, I mean, there's different options you can do, you know, at the local level, give you more time to consider that.
Okay.
But that is not something that we currently offer as a software solution for external folks.
I mean, we have it here, but we can give the data to your GIS people, and they can provide that for you.
I mean, would the data y'all have, is the data y'all have superior to our city county GIS system?
No, we have the data, and we can provide y'all the data, but most of the GIS systems around the state are pretty comparable. I would think y'all would be able to do that, yes, sir. But I don't know what you have. But again, we have the data that you can incorporate into your GIS systems, and to go from there.
What, Frank?
And that may be a technical question of your city manager on what y'all are able to handle, or if this is something working with the county GIS system, they can assist you with.
I'm very good on technical support, as you can see. Frank, I guess I'm confused. I'm not sure I understand the mayor's question about interactive maps and data sets. I know that we provided our initial, ward maps to RFA several months ago, and then we provided and they sent a map back, and we said, okay, you're missing some annexations, the boundaries changed a little bit. And so, is that the type of data you're talking about? Or are you talking about the population data?
Yeah, the way I understand this, I mean, it's a process, it's a timing issue more than anything. If we create a map and move the lines, we're gonna send you that map. I think the mayor's question was, well, rather than somebody call us and say, you moved this line too far to the west, can you move it back? You send that back, we create another map, and then send it to you. That's an issue of time. Whereas if we send you the electronic data and the files, and you have the GIS system, your internal staff can do it almost instantaneously and move the line. It'll take you a couple of minutes to generate the statistics you see, and then you can decide, was that a good thing or bad? So it's more of you say interactive is the way y'all can play the what-if scenarios a lot faster that way than communicating with us and us having to take time to get on our list and then going back and forth.
So I think based on that feedback, the best way to approach this is going to be similar to what I already said, which is let's get to February 25th. Let's receive all public comment for the next 30 days. Any feedback from council, let's give that feedback to them and let them produce an initial map, and then you all can provide us with those shape files. We can produce new maps, and then if the council wants to make changes, we can have our GIS make those changes to see if that works. Rather than saying, hey, can you change this line? Can you move this? Can you add this polygon? We can do that with our internal GIS. And I would imagine that's probably the way Greenwood County is doing it as well. Is that right? Do you know?
I'm not.
We believe they may be doing it that way. We've given a lot of opportunity to local governments, municipal governments to interact, as you just specifically stated.
I'll let you to share for the benefits of y'all, and that's a great way to go because I think it gets y'all more hands-on and you understand and see this. The finer point I will make is that the census block is the lowest level of detail you can work with. So when you're drawing the maps, you have to work with an entire census block. You cannot split a census block. You have in the city of Greenwood 620 census blocks. And so those are census blocks, they make up the precincts. But it's the census blocks that have to make sure they're touching when you do this. So, and again, as you're working through that, on the staff level, if you need to call us back for questions or guidance, we're still available to help with that. But no, that sounds like you're consistent with a lot of other people we're working with. If you'll provide us some initial feedback, in 30 days, we can get you a draft map and then turn it over to y'all, and y'all can kind of work from there to see what's best for Greenwood.
Yep, I think that sounds good. We appreciate it. So here's sort of our next steps. As I outlined already, we're gonna, before we get off of this topic, we're gonna have a public hearing to see if there's anyone that wants to present any comments. Then from tonight to February 25th at noon, we'll receive public comment. We're asking that people submit that online so that we don't have to make some sort of interpretation of what their comment is. They're giving their comment directly. Of course, if someone doesn't have access to social media, they can, or to the internet, they can call up here and we can work with them. Then we will send those comments and we will work with RFA to get a draft map produced. Does anybody have any additional questions for Mr. Rainwater? Okay. Mr. Mayor?
Thank you. Just make sure, nobody on the phone, does anybody on the phone have any questions for Mr. Rainwater?
I'm good.
Thank you. Well, Mr. Rainwater, we sure appreciate it, and I know it's a discussion we will continue to have with you in the next few months to come.
Thank you. We look forward to working with you and your staff. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone that wishes to give any public comments on the redistricting process for the City of Greenwood council member wards? Let the record reflect there are none.
No, you can make a comment.
Come on.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, would there be any possible way, I really like what Julie said about providing the information by email. Is there any way possible we could get a representative to come out in the community to explain exactly what this means? Because people see redistricting, they're going to be thinking everything. But I think it's a great idea to go to the website and to put your question down for Ryan and the staff to look over. But I didn't know if that was any way possible, if anybody could come out, if the council members can go out to their districts and explain, or I don't know if they're able to explain exactly what he just said, but I think it needs to be a little bit some clarity to our community, know exactly what we're doing. I mean, I understand it personally, a little bit, but I think there's some people who hear redistricting, somebody might be pulling their hair out, so.
It is complicated, and from my perspective, of course, I want to see redistricting done fairly, but I represent the entire city, so I'm happy to join any council members for town hall type discussions if to the extent they're required. I don't think that's a bad idea, but we'll have a couple months to do it, and so to the extent council members are agreeable to gathering their constituents, I would support that, and I'd try to be president, any of them.
Is this report going to be online?
It is online
It
now.
is online now for people.
At this link right here, there's all the information is available about the redistricting process, and it includes a copy of that report.
Because this report pretty much outlines the process. So basically, if you read the report, I think if the general public, and I'm sure the newspaper will put that website in there, and if we put that on social media in order for people to read, that possibly this would help make it clearer as far as what the process would be.
Right, we've shared this twice already on our social media, and we'll continue to do that periodically. We'll share it on the Uptown Greenwood website because they have a lot more followers than we do. We can try to reach as many
Sure.
people as we can.
And I think that's great, but to Bishop McCrae's point,
Oh, sure, yeah.
I do think, this is not necessarily the easiest thing to digest. So
We can reach out to, Ryan will reach out to each of you to see if there's a desire to have a public meeting in your ward, or if you
Sure.
want to double up together and have one together, and we can schedule some public meetings.
sure. And if Yeah, I think that's good, and so we can undoubtedly find some venues to accommodate if necessary, or have some type of discussion up here, for any particular ward or wards as well.
All right.
Thank you.
Mayor,
Yes,
we
ma'am.
don't know position of praise before public hearings is, take his name
Yeah, if you could, just for the record, state your name and
for the record.
for the record.
Mr. Alderman McCray,
Thank you.
Marshall.
Thank you, Tiffany. All right. Any further discussion regarding redistricting?
Just close the public hearing.
Yes, we will officially close the public hearing commenting process this time.
Okay, we have one public appearance this evening, by Bishop McCray. So you're up again, sir.
Thank you, ma'am.
We got 5 minutes for you, all right?
I'm gonna try to hurry up. I've got a hand proxy speaking at our church at 6:30, so I'm trying to get out of here. Mr. Mayor, I'd like to present, first of all, good evening, Mr. Mayor and City Council. I'd like to present, I've been talking to the chief of police, and I'd like to be proactive in our community as far as safety is concerned coming up for the summer. Our community, as you know, has issues with trash, code enforcement, drugs, prostitution, break-ins, domestic violence, illegal parking, trespassing, towing, even hunger and medical needs. And you might not know this, but when I'm walking the streets and doing trash talk, a lot of people come to me that need support. They won't call police, and I talked to TJ about it, and I thought that a good idea would be to have something that I call BCS, which is called Blue Community Support. Blue Community Support would be a small satellite location for Greenwood police community involvement and collaboration. Officer Officer K, William K, and his group could come out at least maybe 6 hours a week. We're willing to use our life center for Greenwood PD to come out to have a presence in the community. I think that when they see patrol cars, I think that when they see maybe 3 or 4 hours, maybe 6 hours a week, that they can provide their presence in our life center for things like for education, for collaboration, for enforcement and education, for the community and police. It would be like a mini station. I've studied some mini stations in the largest cities, and it seems like it's been very effective in communities that are embedded with crime. Community policing emphasizes personal service, public service. It is designed to overcome one of the most common complaints that police are not connected with the community. I can say personally that Greenwood Blue has been very, very involved in our community. Every time I call them, they come. I'm very involved with what TJ wants to do in the community, and I think that this would take it to another level by having a satellite type of mini station, and we're willing to use our life center for that. And I think that once that people in the community, when we see prostitutes walking the streets, when we see drugs deals happening in our parking lot, when we see people parking in our parking lot that shouldn't, I think that a police presence, getting out a marketing type of campaign to pass out these flyers in the community, let them know you have a mini police station right there at Mars Chapel Life Center, and whatever they need, if they have emergencies, if they have problem with people parking, we know we have issues on Millweed with parking. In the summer months, things just get crazy on Sumter, and I think that with a collaboration of Greenwood Blue in the community, I think we can make something happen. Policing involves some negative connotations because people have these negative ideas about police. That has not been my particular experience in Greenwood. For me personally, I think that Greenwood PD has done an awesome job. I really, really support them. And I think that what would help our community so much is that we would have a mini satellite station, and we're willing to use Marsh Chapel Life Center as that. This will be used for citizen patrols, citizen police academies, maybe have a police academy for citizens to be part of that, volunteers, school of code enforcement, nuisance abatement, landlords and tenants is a big thing in our community, and BCS would really, really help tremendously. That's Blue Community Support. And Mr. Mayor, I would like to request $100,000 from the American Rescue or CARES Act funding to the Greenwood City Police to be earmarked exactly for community satellite location, Blue Community Support. That money will not be coming to Marsh Chapel. That money will be going straight to police for them to manage to help with the overhead of building rental for the Life Center, utilities, community breakfasts, lunch information gatherings per year, recreational equipment for the gym, community involvement with children, community movie nights, block parties, education and training workshops, power parades, code enforcement education, radio, TV, signage, and graphics. I think that if we would bring the police to the community, not just with drive-throughs, which they do an excellent job, but I think if their presence was there maybe about 6 hours a week, maybe 5 days a week, I think it would make a heck of a difference in deterring some of the crime in our particular area. I'm all for Blue. I support them 100%, and anything that you can do to help us would be deeply appreciated. And I did talk to TJ, and I want to follow up with the chief to go over this with more detail. And thank you for the time. Hope I didn't take too much, and I'll reclaim it next month.
Thank you, Commissioner McCray, and yeah, I'm sure I speak for Chief Shadone when I say community policing is certainly a priority of his that he's really taken and run with in the last year and a half since becoming chief. So to the extent we can sit down and look at some additional opportunities, I'm happy to be part of that conversation with Chief Shadone. I can't speak for any funding at this point, but I'm sure that's something that piques his interest as well.
Well, I think also, Mr. Mayor, that the chief has done a great job. It's not so much as the police, it's getting the community to be involved with the police.
Sure, I understand.
I think that would be advantageous. We have a mini station. Thank you.
Thank you.
I did want to note that if staff wants to leave, you do not have to stay. Especially Mr. Hurst back there, he's been working since 3 o'clock. Did he leave? Yeah. He was probably like hoping somebody would say, "You can go home now." All right. We have several items this evening under new business. The first is to consider ordinance number 22-022, which is amending our zoning ordinance text amendment for accessory dwelling units. We have discussed this multiple times, including at a work session in October, which we delayed putting it on the agenda. Staff went back and worked with the planning staff to come up with what we felt like was something more amenable to the city, smaller than 5 acres. I'm going to let Ryan cover this item, and then Draper and Phil are here if you all have any specific questions about this.
Sure. Just run through it again real quick. Now, we covered this in detail at the work session a few weeks ago. Obviously, this stemmed from a resident in the county that wanted to construct an accessory dwelling unit on their property. I think planning staff originally brought this forward, the same ordinance that they took to the county they brought here with the minimum lot size of 5 acres. We all knew that that wouldn't have quite the impact that we would want it to here by obviously some of the things. The biggest benefit, I think, for us is more housing options for our residents. That's something we know. We have an affordable housing shortage here. This is something that could help us with that. After discussions with council at the work session and our discussion at the October work session and the last work session, we felt that, setting the minimum lot size at, half an acre would be, the most beneficial option, and the density would be rather pretty dispersed throughout the entirety of the city. That would create approximately 2,000 lots for, that would be eligible for, ADUs to be built on. Again, it would be eligible on all residentially zoned, lots. Happy to open it up to any discussion, or any questions too.
Thank you. I know we did a good bit of discussion on this 3 weeks ago, and I feel like I've got my mind around it, but does any council members have any questions for staff? That's Julie, Ryan, or Phil and Draper. All right, I'll tell you what, thank you. Do I hear a motion?
Motion to approve ordinance number 22-002.
Betty Bolt, second.
All right, we got a motion by Mr. Miller, second by Ms. Bowles. Any further discussion regarding proposed ordinance number 22-002? All in favor of ordinance number 22-002? Ms. Bowles?
Yes.
Mr. Bass?
Yes.
Ms. Partlow?
Yes.
Thank you. That motion carries unanimously with 7 votes. Tell you what, y'all mind if I take just a restroom break real quick? I'll be right back.
Understand.
I'm here now. Problem.
He smelled it and he had to bring
Trying
some.
not to fall out of my chair. Right, these restrictions would be something different, but it's not something that our office manages. You know, like Philly and don't manage them.
Or like neighborhoods, covenants and restrictions wouldn't allow it yet.
Wouldn't allow it.
Right. It's a good point.
Yeah.
It's not funny. How does that happen to people? This is a mess. This one, thankfully,
That's what happens when I drink coffee at 5:30. All right, where were we?
under new business, item number 2 is consider ordinance number 22-003 annexing one parcel of land totaling approximately 6.96 acres located at 1610 Durst Avenue East. So we've talked about this ordinance. We've talked about this rezoning at length. I know that most of you on council have received calls and gone to meetings regarding this one and the next one. This is a request by Todd Bailey. He has purchased this approximately 7-acre tract that fronts Durst Avenue, which is adjacent to Brentwood Hills. The parcel is in the county, and it is zoned County R2. He is requesting annexation into the city and a rezoning to City R7. Planning Commission recommended approval at City R4. After some discussion at work session, staff is presenting this ordinance to council as an annexation and a rezoning to R4. Mr. Bailey is here if council has questions of him tonight. He's indicated his intent to put the property potentially in a conservation easement. I cannot answer those questions for you. Only he can answer those. So if you have questions about that, he's here, and I would encourage you to ask those questions of him. Draper is here, Phil is here. If anyone has any specific questions about the parcel on Durst, I will say for the benefit of the folks from Brentwood Hills that this is not a public hearing. I know that Mr. Harrison Forrester has conveyed that to the neighborhood. The public hearing on these two will be February the 28th. I'll turn the floor over.
Sure. Mr. Bailey, would you mind answering a few questions from us here? And again, I think what we're discussing here is annexation, not the rezoning.
Well, so the annexation and the rezoning will occur at the same time. But the rezoning has already gone through the planning commission. It's easier just do it together in one ordinance. So you're really discussing both. The ordinance presented to you annexes the parcel and zones it at the same time.
Gotcha. Good evening.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good.
Good.
Can you hear me?
I can.
might
Yeah, I tell you what.
So they can hear you.
Yeah, that's for the video feed. Tell us, Mr. Bailey, what your plans are for this 7-acre tract.
Because we're annexing it into the city along with the other 33 acres or so that's in the back. This parcel came with the other tract. As the manager indicated or said, I have had some discussions about doing a conservation easement. Part of the thing is the easement's based on how many lots you can put in, so the zoning does matter. And that's one layout. I actually probably flip-flop that. But the more lots, the higher the number, the appraiser can get the value on and go. So.
Can you make sure that mic's on?
You want me to hold it over here so you can see it?
There you go.
Is the can you, just for the benefit of me and I think everyone, is when you put land in a conservation easement, does it, is it a tax benefit for the?
Yes.
Okay, so the density
So I went through
determines
this,
the value?
I went through this on another parcel that's not in the city back in October, for an apartment complex that we've got land, zoning's already in. And that didn't work out because the value is in the apartments, not in the land, which doesn't make any sense to me because I can sell it for more, so that's what we ended up doing. So in the conversation with the man from Greenwood, wherever the appraiser's from, the residential, we went through the whole equation of how he does it. I said, so the residential would actually get you more. He said, yes. So this is a project, I don't necessarily need another 25 lots, but that came with the land in the back that was already set up. So in annexing, I asked for, you gotta bring it in with some type of zoning, so we asked for R7.
So what are the restrictions, limitations on development when it's in conservation easement, if any?
So you can, I've not done one, but there's different ways you can do it. So you can, like the one on Morningside, you can restrict it to where you put in a conservation easement, allow one resident to be built, or some of them you have it where there's 0 residents can be built. So it just depends. I was working with the Upper Savannah Land Trust on that one. So you can't go to conservation easement and build 25 houses, I can tell you that. I mean, that's the whole thing. You're giving up the value, which is the land for development. So if you got a zone and you can do 25, and you end up doing 25, or whatever it is, 7-acre tract, you've given up all that and you can get it.
So what you're saying, the tax value and the tax benefit to you would increase depending upon the increase of what you could do residentially.
Right, because they're going to take the value of what you can sell it for versus what you got in it. So what you can sell it for, the more lots you've got, the higher the value, makes it worthwhile. If you don't have the increase in lots, you can't get the value out of it.
So, and maybe just in a nutshell, if you build,
But you can't build once you get the easement.
We wouldn't build on it.
You wouldn't build on it. correct me if I'm wrong, so basically with the conservation easement, as I know it, you basically say, I'm giving over this land and it's not gonna be built on, okay? The reason why it's important for the valuation is they have to have a valuation on the land. So the higher the density, the more valuable the land, thus the better it works, in a sense, the valuation works. But once it's put in an easement, there's no building going on.
Correct.
Okay,
I would not put it in an easement to build on.
correct. You put it in an easement in order to get a tax benefit.
Right, but you can't put a piece of land in easement, take the highest value, and the highest value not be eligible. So you'd have to have sewer available, which I bought a sewer easement, so I've got that. And you gotta have the zoning possible, and you gotta have access.
Okay,
So
I see.
you gotta have all those, you have to have it like, you can go ahead and develop on it, and then give it away. You can't have it, not have any value and say, oh, this is,
Okay, I got it.
So you're not planning to develop anything on here before you apply for this conservation easement, is that?
correct.
But there's no, if something should happen to you, I don't wanna be doom and gloom. If something should happen to you and the land gets rezoned to and gets done, and the conservation doesn't happen, and somebody else would sell it, then basically they're stuck with that zoning.
Yes.
Okay.
Because I'm sure my kids would be told.
Yes.
Is this layout based on R7?
Yeah, I mean, the difference between R7, we go back to that, is the 6,000 square foot versus 10,000 square foot. As you can see, there's a ton of green space there. I can take that layout and make it, I could probably take that layout and make it R4, and just take all the green space out and hold it in. We just didn't do that.
Right.
And I would also, the lot falls where the road's coming in, those first two lots would be the most fall. We would flip that around and put the cul-de-sac there and bring the entrance in somewhere where you're moving that thing. Yeah.
But again, this is all academic, in essence, just for approval purposes, because none of this is gonna be,
I have no intentions of develop this now. I didn't know I was buying this piece of land. When I went, John's like, by the way, you have to take this, and I've got 2 lots inside the neighborhood I can do that I can't really do anything with.
Well, why go through all this if you're not planning on building?
Because I have to have you have to have the zoning in place, and that if you can do it. So when the appraiser comes back, the boxes they gotta check is, okay, we got this laid out for 100 lots. Can you do 100 lots, yes or no? Do you have sewer? Do you have all that? You have to have access and be able to get all that in order to do it. So I couldn't go out in the middle of, in the middle of the county somewhere where there's no sewer or anything, and take a 100-acre tract of land and put 500 lots on it and create a conservation easement with no sewer or water or the zoning to do it. So you've got to have all that stuff in place to do it.
Brandon, I have 2 questions.
go for it.
I'm gonna go ahead and say them, so let Mr. Bailey answer them. First question is, who would you be getting the tax credits from? And the second question is, who would you be providing this conservation easement to? If you're gonna give it to someone, or are you gonna hold it? What's your plan for that?
I would not want to hold it, so I would either donate it to the city or to the Upper Savannah Land Trust if they want it. Then the credits come 2 different ways. You get a tax deduction from the federal government and a tax credit from the state. And the state tax credit expires, I think, in 5 years. The federal, a little bit longer.
Did we lose him?
No, he was just asking a question.
Mr. Bass, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can. I've got one more question.
Okay.
I know that in the past we've discussed NPR, and that's not something that you've been a fan of, but is there any way that that we could reconsider this at NPR and give you still the same lot sizes with the with tying some limitations to how that land could be developed in the future?
I'm not opposed to that.
Is that, can you answer that?
And I guess that just is, Mr. Bassett's question leads to, I guess the request right now is annexation to, and when you annex, you have to provide zoning, so it's, the request is for annexation to R7. That's what's on here. So if we were to consider annexation at a different zoning level, is that, I mean, we just need to make a motion to amend the proposed ordinance?
So he requested R7, Planning Commission recommended R4. So the ordinance is presented to you as R4, annexation in R4.
Oh, it is, okay.
Mr. Bailey has requested R7.
Okay.
If you wanted to zone it to MPR, I need Phil to come up, because I know there's a lot of steps you have to go through for the MPR. That's not as simple as
You may
it
have to get
I don't have a
shared
problem
amount.
too if there's a way to restrict it, that if for some reason we didn't donate it and we go to build on it, that it was okay, then it flips back to a different zoning. I don't have a problem with that. Said I'm not trying to pull one on you, but
Sure.
in a conversation, I'm like, I don't know what else to tell you. The zoning's gotta be there to have the maximum number of lots.
Sure.
If you chose to go to an MPR designation, we would just need to know that as far as your motion, and then we would submit you a draft that identified the conditions upon which you would have to acquire the MPR, and that would be the total number of units, and then any additional things like placing this property or a portion of the property into conservation easement.
Would doing that, just as Ms. Otto mentioned, in case something were to happen to Todd between now and when the conservation easement. No, and now I feel horrible, jinx you somehow.
No.
But would the NPR route be the preferable way to do that rather than, R4 with some restriction? I mean,
I don't know how you can do R4 with some restrictions.
R7.
Well, that's what you're requesting. What's before us tonight is R4.
Yeah, you would just have the R7 standard, which does not have any stipulation to that, so you would not have any guarantee directly for that. The NPR provides that guarantee.
So the NPR would say, if you chose to do so, 6,000 square feet, X number of lots, contingent on a conservation easement, or I guess, is that right?
That's correct.
Conceivably.
And any variances from that request would have to come back before city council, is that correct?
That's correct.
So the zoning would follow the parcel. If Todd sold it to somebody, the NPR zoning and the restrictions included in that, or the language of that particular NPR, just like a PDD, would follow the parcel, similar to that parcel in the back of Brentwood Hills that already has a PDD on it. That we'll be talking about next.
That's right.
Anybody else have any questions for Phil or Mr. Bailey? Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it. Do I hear a motion with regards to proposed ordinance number 22-003?
I'll make a motion.
Is that?
Motion to
Let me make sure, before it's seconded, Mr. Bass, we talked about amending the proposed ordinance. Are you making the motion as it's currently reads right now?
No, I'd like to amend the motion.
To what?
Amend the ordinance to, I don't have everything up on my screen right now, so Julie, I may need some help with this, but I want to amend the motion to, accept this annexation into the city with an NPR, with those guidelines of accepting it as an R7 with the
Conservation
The conservation easement.
conservation easement and the limitations of how the property can be developed in the future. Could you help me with that? Because on my iPad, I can't see the ordinance right in front of me.
I would say that you're not amending the motion, you're just making a motion.
Okay.
So his motion, just for clarity, is approval of the annexation but zoning to NPR with the parameters that we just discussed, which are the R7 parameters, 6,000 square foot lots, setbacks that meet R7, maximum number of lots as presented by the preliminary plan he provided and contingent on a conservation easement. Is that right? Everybody?
That's correct.
Mr. Bass? Okay.
Well, let me, you mentioned setbacks pursuant to R7.
Right, everything is R7.
Everything's R7. With the contingency that it's gonna be in a conservation easement.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, just for clarification, I just want to make sure that I'm clear on this. What I'm trying to accomplish with that motion is I'm trying to make sure that there's a layer of privacy for that portion of Brentwood Hills that would not exist if that were to be developed, and also trying to be in favor of making sure that conservation happens with the goodwill of the developer who's trying to do the right thing to help that neighborhood out.
So my question on that would be, you said to limit it to whatever that layout was. The whole point would be to get as many lots shown on that plat if we're going to give it away, because that makes a difference.
Why don't you just discuss that with Draper and Phil? We'll come back with the language. I didn't specify, I don't think Mr. Bass didn't specify a specific number of lots. I said just number of lots.
I know, but I don't want a limitation on that, because we might squeeze a couple more in.
We're gonna have to vote for it again either way if it's approved, so.
I can't hear you.
Doesn't
I'm
want to
sorry.
vote for it again anyway if it's approved, so that will.
We'll have to come back for second reading and public hearing. We'll be able to accomplish all that before second reading and public hearing, guys? Okay. So before it comes back for second hearing, we'll have all that nailed down. So, Mr. Bass has made a motion.
Could you clarify the motion, please?
Yeah, I don't know whether it makes sense for Mr. Bass to clarify it. If, Julie, I think you have it. Do you want to kind of read it?
Sure. Mr. Bass's motion is, he's making a motion to approve the annexation of the parcel at an NPR zoning, which would mirror R7, which would be 6,000 square foot minimum lot size. The setbacks in R7, I don't know right off the top of my head. Do you know what they are? 20, 10, 10?
27 and a half.
Okay. The setbacks will mirror R7. Planning staff will work with Mr. Bailey on a maximum number of lots within that zoning, and then Mr. Bailey will place the property in a conservation easement. That's the motion.
I will second that motion.
Thank you.
All right, we got a motion by Mr. Bass, second by Mr. Miller. Any further discussion? I guess go ahead.
What happened to R4? It just out the window?
Well, no, and Ms. Bowles, it's my understanding is that this is just for classification for when Mr. Bailey goes to value the conservation easement. And I guess I have a issue, and I'm not trying to rain on your parade, Mr. Bailey, with regard to what the most you can get out of that conservation easement. But, I guess I do have a bit of an issue, even if it's all academic, rezoning it to the equivalent of R7 under NPR, if that's not what we would have done had it not been proposed to be a conservation easement. That's my only thing. I just feel like it may be disingenuous. And I'm not trying to rain on your parade on what you could get for that conservation easement, but if that's not what we would have done anyway, I guess that would be what would trouble me. I don't know what the difference in what you could get from an NPR based on R7 versus an NPR based on the details of a R4, but I think I would be more in favor of it if it was an NPR with the R4 requirements.
But I
But-
guess that's a conjecture as to whether or not we would have approved it. You know, we could have approved it as R7, we could have approved it as R4. We didn't do that, so.
You're right. You're right. I don't, and I'm just kind of thinking as to what I would have done, based on the community. I just,
Then don't vote for it.
I mean, if we were gonna do that, you know, if there was something higher than R7, I mean, you know, in theory, that's what we would,
No.
I mean, it's all academic, so it's not, nothing's gonna be built. We're just putting this on paper for him to then go and get the equivalent, for the conservation easement, but anyway.
The most important thing to me, Mayor and Council, is that this goes into an NPR, that there's some layer of protection there, just as was mentioned that Nikki brought up earlier, is that this goes into a conservation easement.
Any further discussion regarding proposed ordinance number 22-003? Well, would it still be 22-003?
Yeah.
It would, okay. Any further discussion regarding proposed ordinance number 22-003 as moved by Mr. Bass? All right, all in favor of ordinance number 22-003? Ms. Bartlow?
Yes.
Mr. Bass?
Yes.
Ms. Bowles?
Yes, but we don't have to make this an amendment?
No, as Julie mentioned, it's not technically, we're not moving to amend, it's technically a new motion that Mr. Bass made.
You're
And-
amending the language of the ordinance, you're not amending a motion, he's just making a motion.
Right. Making a motion which would still
Just
be,
amending the language.
which would still be ordinance number 22-003.
Okay,
So, five
Yes.
in favor.
Okay, all opposed? That motion carries by a vote of 5-2.
Okay. We are moving on to new business number 3, which is to consider ordinance number 22-004, annexing one parcel of land totaling approximately 33.597 acres located 1930 Old Lawrence Road. This is the larger parcel that is directly behind Brentwood Hills. You can see it here outlined in red, and it's listed in purple. I lost my place on my sheet here. This property is currently zoned county PDD. Similar to the other parcel, Mr. Bailey is requesting annexation of this parcel into the city and zoning to R7. The Planning Commission actually sent this item forward with no recommendation to council. I believe they went through several different votes, one on R7, one on R4, I believe, and there was no consensus. I can't recall, but what I know is that this came forward to council with no recommendation from Planning Commission. After discussion at work session, this property is being presented to council to be rezoned to city PDD with the same language that exists now in the county's PDD, but also adding a little bit of language that includes that the layout of the development will stay as it was approved many years ago by Planning Commission and County Council at the time. The maximum number of dwelling units would be 58. The dwelling units would be limited to single family. The minimum lot size would be 10,000 square feet. The setbacks will be 20 in the front, 10 on the sides, 20 in the rear. dwelling units bordering or connecting to the existing Brentwood Hills neighborhood would need to be constructed of brick on at least 3 sides. There has been a lot of discussion with the developer and the neighborhood. There's been a lot of discussion among, I know specifically Mr. Bass and Brentwood Hills. I know that the mayor has been to several meetings. I believe these are parameters that everyone agrees with to a degree. And this is what is being presented to you this evening. I know council has lots of questions. I have Rhett Templeton is here. He's a city county engineer. Phil and Draper are here. City attorney is here for any questions you may have about this particular rezoning.
Thank you. I guess just to continue to follow or Sturgis, does anybody have a motion, and after it's seconded, we could really take up discussion on it?
Motion to approve ordinance 22-004.
Have a motion by Mr. Bass,
Second.
second by Mr. Miller. And again, procedurally, I think now's the proper time for us to discuss. I guess Phil and or Draper, let me understand what, as I've understood Julie to explain it, it's coming to us as it's already currently zoned in county, but with the additional stipulations. But I'm not sure what is actually additional stipulations, because isn't currently already, if they were to build it right now, not having to go through any other hoops other than maybe some permitting, they could build 58 homes, correct?
That's right.
So the maximum, so number 2 there is not new.
I don't have the.
So the reason that we opted to really enumerate these parts of the PDD is because what year was this originally approved? 97?
So the PDD was originally created in 1997, and this concept plan was approved in October of 2003.
So it's very vague. The language of the PDD is very vague. It really, even there's it just addresses the lot size and the setbacks. And so I think if that same ordinance were to be passed in 2022, it would be more detailed, and we felt like it was better to spell it out for perpetuity.
I got you.
That's right.
Well, I guess then, in that regard, other than the 58 homes, is the minimum lot size and the setbacks, are those the same as it was, as the PDD from 1997 or whatever?
Yes.
Okay. So really, the addition is number 6, which is dwelling units bordering or connecting to the existing Brentwood Hill neighborhood shall be constructed of brick on at least 3 sides.
That's correct.
Okay,
But this will also read a lot cleaner.
sure. Gotcha. Does anybody have any questions for Draper? Nobody? Well, we couldn't get anybody to ask any questions tonight, Draper. Be careful what you wish for.
Mr. Mayor, I don't want to be out of order, but I just wanted to know, are we allowed to speak?
Well, public hearing is going to be our next meeting, our next official meeting. It's not a work session, which will be next month. And at that point, y'all have time. I think we'll probably limit it to certain representatives, but we'll have time to discuss all that then. It's got to go through 2 readings. This is just first reading.
All right.
So thank you for your patience.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. I know we had Draper up here, but is there any further discussion regarding proposed ordinance number 22-004? And I want to make sure I confirm for the record and for everybody, because I know there will be undoubtedly some further discussion next month, but if I'm understanding it, I want to make sure I'm clear. Currently, right now, they could build 58 homes with 10,000 square foot minimum lot size, setbacks 20 feet in the front, 10 feet on the sides, 20 feet in the rear. What we're doing is actually adding, and they could do that right now without any additional approvals. What we're doing is actually, in addition to potentially rezoning, what we're being asked to do is add an additional restriction of the dwelling units bordering or connecting to the existing neighborhood to be constructed of brick on at least 3 sides. Am I summing that up?
So, yes, you are. So like in this plan that was approved in 2003, I know it's really small. This is, the plan shows connectivity into the back portion through 3 roads. I believe it's Cheekwood, Cabot, and Winston. Is that right? So in those areas, I believe the plan that Mr. Bailey presented originally only showed connectivity through Cabot and Cheekwood and not Winston. I think that's right, one or the other. So if he chose to connect in through 2 roads versus 3, where those homes transition into basically the new neighborhood from the existing neighborhood, you would have brick on 3 sides so that it wouldn't be such a stark transition point from an existing neighborhood to a new neighborhood. That was not something that was in the original PDD. That has come about through meetings and conversations with the neighborhood and the developer.
Thank you. Any further discussion regarding proposed ordinance number 22-004 at this first reading? All right, all in favor of ordinance number 22-004? Ms. Bowles?
I'm a little on the fence, but okay for now. We're gonna have public hearing next month.
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Bowles, I hate to ask, but I need some certainty, yes or no, on your vote. What was it?
Yes.
All right, Ms. Bartlow?
Yes.
Mr. Bass?
Yes.
All right, that motion carries unanimously with 7 votes.
If you were here for those 2 items and you don't want to stay, you don't have to.
Because it's about to get super interesting.
What, you can stay, I mean.
It's interesting to certain audiences.
Thank y'all. We'll look forward to seeing y'all next month too.
Power grid.
You might wanna hang out with this one.
I've never had that. I know.
Harrison Forster,
Voice.
having laryngitis. You really have seriously laryngitis? I have, I've lost mine. It works, left it.
Nobody even listens.
I need some water.
We're in an unofficial break.
Unofficial break?
Yes.
Since you didn't move for a recess, I will call this a pause.
It's a pause. Thank you. Our procedural expert, Tiffany, is giving us a pause here.
Yeah.
She's up at DC.
I see you real.
Good seeing you.
Good seeing you too, buddy.
Thank you.
We'll wait for Mr. Miller to return and take this back, resume.
TJ.
Hey, TJ.
Can you like shuttle them on through the door there? Thanks. Did it get louder?
A little bit.
Are y'all ready?
Yeah, let me, make sure we're heard. All right, what do we got up next?
Okay. Under new business number 4 is to consider resolution number 22-001 to approve the expenditure of accommodations tax dollars as a match for an Economic Development Association American Rescue Plan grant. So we've been talking for some time about the vacant building at 104 Main Street, which the city owns, and it's just a shell of a building. There's no utilities in the building. There's no bathrooms. There's nothing. It's right now the top part, the first floor, which you come into off of Main Street, is empty, and the bottom, the theater uses for storage. So I personally, as the city manager, think it's kind of tragic that the city owns a building in our Main Street. We've done so much revitalization, and yet this building that we own sits vacant as we work so hard to fill vacant buildings.
I agree.
So the parking is very, very limited in this area, and so it's going to be challenging to find, it's going to be hard for a restaurant to go here or retail space because there's just no parking available. So really a visitor center, I think, makes wonderful sense here. Even though the federal building is a wonderful space, and it's an asset to our community and to our downtown, Kelly and her office are tucked away, and Laura's office as well. I feel bad for people sometimes. They come over here and they ask to see Kelly or Laura, and I don't even send them over there because I feel so bad. I just say, let me try to help you, because trying to tell them how, number one, to navigate over to the Arts Center, and then to park, and then to go inside, and then to go upstairs, and then to navigate down the hallway to find them is a challenge. This puts them really front and center, which is where they should be for not only a visitor, but for a resident alike to be able to access our destination center. So we started out with, we have Davis and Floyd on contract for architectural and engineering services. And so Kelly had in her budget for 2022 to pay Davis and Floyd to basically do a professional engineering review for this building. So they've gone in and they've said, this is how much it's going to cost to do what you want to do. Obviously, knowing that that's just an estimate, you would have to do the engineering, you would have to bid it out. In conjunction with that, Design Sensory, who is the marketing firm of record for Discover Greenwood, put these renderings together. I just selected a couple. There's a whole presentation that shows the whole building. This is just a couple of sample ideas for what this building could be like. You'll see this is a rendering of the front. Up there in the top right corner is a rendering of what the reception area could look like. This is a feature wall that could be changed out monthly, almost like the Art Center has exhibits that rotate out. This one, I believe, is for Black History Month, but it gives an opportunity for us to highlight things in our community that are of great importance to us. There's a lot more going on. So we've had our eyes open for a grant for probably 2 years, and we were really ready to roll on this right before COVID hit it's been a good thing and a bad thing that we kind of slowed because there's been more grant funding that's been kind of emerging related to this type of thing because the ARPA money, there's a lot of it that's geared towards the travel and tourism industry who was really hit hard by the pandemic. So this grant deadline, in full disclosure, was actually January the 31st. So we've been working with the COG. They've been helping us put our application together, but they only allotted $8 million. And so we found out on Friday that they've already allocated all the money before the deadline. They haven't even reached the deadline yet. But they've encouraged us to go ahead and apply because they feel like there will be more funding coming in some fashion. So we wanted to ask council to go ahead and approve the resolution and let us submit the application to the Economic Development Association so that when money comes available, they'll already have our packet ready to go. The grant that we would be applying for, we're going to apply even though we know the funding is gone, is $805,000 and the match is $200,000. The Discover Greenwood office has, for their budget, they have a healthy fund balance, which is likely where this match would be coming from. We would come back to council for a budget amendment at that time, but this is where we would ask council to designate those funds to come from, and then we would proceed with submitting the application. So the resolution before you tonight is resolution number 22-001, authorizing us to apply for the grant and promise the match.
And you said the majority of the match would be paid for by...
I would anticipate that really most of the match would come from her fund balance. Thank you, Ryan. But there may be an opportunity to say, well, does the county want to use some ARP money? Does the city want to use some ARP money? And I think as we start traveling down, if we know we have the grant, then I think those are when additional conversations can be had. But right now, we know that the fund balance and accommodations tax will cover this expenditure.
Okay.
And still leave a healthy fund balance.
And I think you answered my question is, it sounds like that would be the cleanest way to do it, considering Discover Greenwood is a city-county entity, agency, for lack of a better term. So I think you understood my question when you said there may be opportunities for ARPA funds from city and or county.
But also recognize that her fund balance is attributed to from the city and the county tax collection.
Right.
So pulling from that pot of money is also the city and the county contributing to that purpose. Right. So there's a lot of different ways we could look at it, but I'm confident that the fund balance can manage this match. And so at this time, we're just asking council to approve the resolution so that we can move forward with the application and that we're ready to go if some funding is made available.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution number 22-001.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Miller, second by Ms. Hutto. Any further discussion regarding resolution number 22-001?
In the plans too, you may have said this and I missed it, but would the basement still stay storage for the theater, or would it move to be something else?
There are plans to improve the basement as well. Okay. We've talked about a lot of options for what that could be, including like an incubator space for small businesses. The theater would have to move their stuff, and we've already talked with Stephen Gilbert. He knows. He keeps asking me, like, how long do I have? How long do I have? We know they have a lot of stuff down there, and we know the theater has storage challenges, but also keep in mind that that's not a climate-controlled space either, so it's not the most ideal storage for them. It's just what's been available to them.
It's almost an opportunity to...
Sure, and so
I mean, if it is upgraded and potentially climate-controlled, I mean... And it's not an incubator space, or it's not used by Discover Greenwood. It could be.
There's way better opportunities for the use of that space than for the theater to store their stuff there. But we'll work with them. We're not going to just pull the rug out from under them. There'll be plenty of time for them to figure out what to do with their stuff. Also, keep in mind that Davis and Floyd is estimating the cost of this project in a time when building materials are at an all-time high. And so by the time we get ready to construct this, you know, who knows how the bids will come in. It could be higher, could be lower. So we're just basing it on the estimate that we have available to us right now.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion regarding resolution number 22-001? All in favor of resolution number 22-001? Mr. Bass?
Yes.
Ms. Partlow?
Yes.
Ms. Bowles?
Yes.
All right, that motion carries unanimously with 7 votes.
We're getting there, guys. Okay. Resolution number 22-002 is authorizing the city manager to execute a law enforcement assistance support agreement with Piedmont Tech Police Department. I don't know if TJ left. Anybody sees him out there? You know, Piedmont Tech has a new police chief, which is Jeff Crisp, who used to work here at the city. He was one of our majors when he left. And we also have a newish police chief. And so, Jeff came to the city and requested this basically mutual aid agreement. And it's something that we have in place with the county. We have it in place with Lander. We're already operating under the terms of this agreement. This really just memorializes what we're already doing and gets the proper signatures on the document.
Is this going to be essentially identical to the one we have with the county and Lander?
This language comes from the Municipal Association's model agreement for mutual aid.
Which is that the same one we use for?
I don't know if the language is identical.
But the spirit.
The spirit and the premise is the same. The city attorney has reviewed it. He sees no issues at all.
With mutual assistance, I mean, I guess we think in terms of these other agreements we've had with the county and Lander, have we ever received assistance from, let's say, I mean, we're talking about it, higher education. Have we ever received assistance from Lander? I mean, I'm just curious.
I'm certain that we have. I don't patrol all day. I have no idea. But I mean, I would be willing to bet that, yes, I thought TJ, he left me an alert here.
No security
He'll
out there.
I've asked him to come back up so he can answer your questions specifically about, you know, how often Lander or Piedmont Tech needs to provide mutual aid. I think it's just a common practice in communities to have these mutual aid agreements in place with other law enforcement entities that reside in their boundaries. I mean, technically Piedmont Tech's in the city, but, you know, we have mutual aid with the county. I believe we also have mutual aid with Abbeville County. So you have the county boundary line there. So we have several of these in place.
I was just curious. I mean, I don't know if it's necessarily historically significant.
He was getting arrested. Were you bringing me one?
Well, I was trying to drink it, but
it's 7:20 at night.
How can you go to
Chief.
sleep? He doesn't sleep, I don't think.
I've been here in this meeting, so I kind of
Mayor, we're talking about the mutual aid with Piedmont Tech, and
Yes.
The mayor was asking how often would a Lander or a Piedmont Tech need to provide aid to us instead of in the reverse, maybe.
It would, the only time you would really get it, you had an officer involved shooting, all our units are tied up, we asked Piedmont Tech for assistance to help us out with calls. That's pretty much the gist of it.
Like I said, I don't know if it's really, it really makes a difference one way or the other, but have we ever had to ask Lander to step in?
No, we've never asked for assistance from any other agency.
Just curiously, are there any other entities that we informally have this type of arrangement with that we just haven't codified yet?
Yeah, we do have it with, of course, the county. We have it with Lander, and they used to have it with Piedmont Tech. So it's just a formal thing that if we need assistance, they'll come in and help us. If they need assistance, we'll go help them.
Sure. You say we used to have it like officially, do y'all, is that what you mean?
I believe there was something in place at one
When
time.
the agreement came to us, Major McAllister was working with Chief Crisp at Piedmont Tech. I asked that same question, is this just a refresh? Because whenever I came in, TJ came in, we had to get all of our mutual aid agreements re-signed. And so there was no reason to bring it to council if all it required was new signatures. But neither agency, the city or Piedmont Tech, was able to put their hands on the agreement. So we said, just bring another one forward and we'll just do it that way. So there's belief that at some point in the past there was an agreement between Piedmont Tech and the city, but since none of us were around when that happened and we couldn't put our hands on the agreement, we felt it better just to execute a brand new one.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Absolutely, sir.
You go back, get your.
Actually, yeah, you might as well hang tight now.
Yeah, I'm gonna sit here.
All right, do I hear a motion with regard to resolution number 22-002?
I make a motion to consider resolution number 22-002.
Motion to approve.
All right, I'm gonna try to, we got a motion by Ms. Hutto. I think technically Mr. Abels seconded it, so we have a second by Mr. Abels. Any further discussion regarding resolution number 22-002? All in favor of resolution number 22-002? Ms. Bartlow?
Yes.
Ms. Bowles?
Yes.
Mr. Bass?
Yes.
All right, that motion carries unanimously with 7 votes. And
the chief thanks you.
The chief, and we're glad to help out our friend Chief Crisp and our friend Dr. Rivers over there, who's done a great job in her first year.
New business item number 6 is to consider acceptance of roads in Milford Pines Phase 3 and the associated storm sewer. Mr. Bailey has requested that City Council accept these roads in Phase 3. We have previously accepted the roads in Phase 1 and Phase 2. It only makes good sense to accept the roads in Phase 3 as well. As part of this process, Mr. Bailey will have to provide a 3-year maintenance bond, $51,620. That number is determined by Mr. Templeton, who's our city and county engineer, based on the cost to repave the road one time. So infrastructure in this sense is defined as the streets and the storm sewers located in the public right-of-way. The city engineer and our public works director, Eric Leary, go out and do inspections on the storm drain pipes to make sure that they meet our specifications, as well as the road installation. They do proof rolls to ensure that the infrastructure has been put in as defined in our land development code, and that it's in good working order before they'll kind of give the green light to subdivide and begin building houses on those roads. Technically, Rhett gave his approval to Mr. Bailey in May of 2021 to go ahead and start using these roads and subdividing. So his bond will actually expire in May of 2024 versus, January of 2025. But we feel like that's a fair assessment of the way the process should work. And so we would request and recommend approval of the acceptance of these roads.
All right, do I hear a motion?
Not the sidewalks. Thank you. We're not taking the sidewalks.
Motion to accept the roads in Milford Pines Phase 3 and associated storm sewer.
Second.
I have a motion by Ms. Hutto, second by Mr. Miller. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Templeton or any further discussion? Any agree with everything Julie said, Brad?
That's a good answer.
Ask Carrie that same answer.
He would also say yes.
All right, any further discussion? Make sure I'm giving you the right.
I'm sorry, it's right here. Nope, right there.
what,
There's no resolution or anything, it's just a
Oh,
consideration
okay.
and an approval.
all right. All in favor of acceptance of the roads in Milford Pines Phase 3 and the associated storm sewer? Mr. Bass?
Yes.
Ms. Bartlow?
Yes.
Ms. Bowles?
Yes.
That motion carries unanimously with 7 votes.
New business item number 7, finally. Y'all have been so patient.
Hallelujah.
I was talking to the new planning commissioners here, but y'all too have been very patient.
We're just making sure you're committed.
Yeah.
It would be nice for y'all to see how the items went
Right.
through.
Yeah.
How the sausages. And the new business item number 7 is to consider appointments to the Greenwood City County Planning Commission. We have talked about this and talked about this and talked about this. We have three seats that are opening up as vacancies. It seemed to be the general will of council to appoint 3 new members to the board. And so we present to you tonight Mr. Graham Duncan, who resides in Ward 4. He is a Lander grad, 2017. He actually also works at Lander. He's government relations, and he's also an adjunct professor because he doesn't have enough to do. And he's a member of the Lander Staff Senate. He keeps the city informed, really, of all the public relations things that Lander has going on, and it helps us tremendously to be able to stay in the loop about what's going on. And he does an excellent job at that. You want to wave your hand, Graham?
Could you take the, new business number 7 down? We can't see.
No, it's up there.
She wants to see actually see, in the room.
Oh, I don't know how. Oh, you want me to take it down?
No, she wants to see the camera.
Oh, I thought
It is done.
We can get you to come, walk and turn and all that. We need you to.
You're good. They can't see you. That's the problem. All right. We also have Miss Toya Davis. She resides in Matthews Mill Village in Ward 6. I think probably everyone knows Toya. She's a staple at all things. She's a graduate of Limestone College. She works at Piedmont Tech as the benefit coordinator. Bless your heart. COVID has turned benefit coordinator into something else. It's not benefit coordinator anymore. Yeah, I know. Yeah. She has 30 years in the human resources field, which is very impressive. She's very active in the Matthews Mill Village community and the Greenwood Neighborhood Association Council. So Toya is right back there. And we have Miss Tiffany Goodman Stevens, who resides in Ward 3. She's a graduate of Piedmont Tech, a local.
Yay!
She is a local realtor, so she's booming right now. I'm certain of it. She previously worked in healthcare. She's a secretary at her church, and she desires to be a role model and help make a difference, which I think we need more role models in our community for certain. So we appreciate all that you do. And these are your 3 candidates for Planning Commission.
Well, let's cheer once we appoint them as well. Before we vote, I want to just thank all of y'all for being willing to undertake this role. It's very important, and we want to thank those that have done it before you. But glad to have 3 folks that live in the city that we can appoint to do this. So, can we do it all collectively? I don't know. Okay, good. Do I hear a motion?
Motion to consider the appointments of Graham Duncan, Toya Davis, and Tiffany Goodman Stevens to the Greenwood City County Planning Commission.
Ready, go second?
That's what happens when you're not here.
So fast on that.
I know. We have a motion by Ms. Otto, second by Mr. Abels. Any further discussion regarding the appointments to the Greenwood City County Planning Commission? All in favor of the appointments as proposed? Ms. Bowles?
Yes.
Mr. Bass?
Yes.
Ms. Bartlow?
Yes.
All right. Now we can clap. Motion carries unanimously with 7 votes. Again, thank y'all.
We also, under new business item number 8 is to administer oaths of office to the Greenwood County, to the City of Greenwood Planning Commission members and the Board of Zoning Appeals members. I don't know, okay, Phil, just the 3 new members? Okay, so, we only found out recently from MASC that we're supposed to administer the oath to all of our appointees. And so Tiffany's gonna administer the oath to the 3 new planning commission. Yeah,
Congratulations.
yeah, yeah. So you're gonna
I
administer
can
the
hold it
oath?
for you if you want me to.
You're gonna administer the oath to the 3 new members. If y'all just come up, we'll do it simultaneously. You can all 3 do it together.
You just tell me.
Okay, I'm starting with the planning commission first.
Well, that's all that's here.
That's all that's here.
Come on up.
So are we not doing BZA?
We will at some point. We asked him to be here, but Phil just shook his head that no one's here, so.
Oh, got you.
Oh, hey, come on up. I love it.
Hey, Grant, can you grab that mic?
Oh, so he's here for the BZA?
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
All right, so we got 4.
Thank you for coming.
You guys don't have to meet every month. That's nice, right?
Well, yeah, that's true.
Planning commissioners, sorry, guys.
Hey, Tiffany, you wanna use the mic?
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. Tiffany.
What's your name one more time so that.
James Jones.
James Jones is here, Miss Bowles.
Okay.
I feel like that's what you're about to ask me.
How about somebody in the middle can hold the Bible and everybody can like.
I'll come hold
Okay.
the Bible for you.
Can you get by?
Thank you for the meeting because he really enjoyed us.
Getting close to something to hold on to.
Everybody wanna put their hand on it, just some.
Okay.
We doing planning commission first?
We're gonna do them all, whenever, we come to, stating your name, I'll just point your direction. Alright, so this is the oath of office. This is the oath of office for officials of the City of Greenwood and political subdivision and municipal corporation for the state of South Carolina. In the name and by the authority of the state of South Carolina, I,
Tiffany Stephen.
Toya Davis.
Graham Duncan.
James R. Jones.
do solemnly swear.
Y'all say it together.
I'm sorry, I repeat after me.
Do solemnly
swear. Affirm that I'm duly qualified.
Affirm that I'm duly qualified.
According to the Constitution of this state.
According to the Constitution of this state.
To exercise the duties of the office.
To exercise the duties of this office.
To which I have been elected.
To which I have been elected.
And that I will, to the best of my ability.
That I will, to the best of my abilities.
Discharge the duties thereof.
Discharge the duties thereof.
And preserve, protect.
And preserve, protect.
And defend the Constitution.
And defend the Constitution.
Of this state and the United States.
Of this state and the United States.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Thank you.
Thank you all very
I
much.
need you all to sign these before you go, please.
I do not have any comments this evening. I feel like y'all heard from me enough. So if there are no comments from city council, we can adjourn.
I would just like to remind everybody about the city-county food drive. Tomorrow is the deadline for monetary donations. And then the deadline for actual food donations is a week from today at 9 a.m. If y'all hadn't seen the video I did with County Councilman Robbie Templeton, I've essentially committed that the city will win this one. So I need y'all to help me achieve that goal. But if we can do what we did last year and raised 24,000 pounds, according to Councilman Robbie Templeton, which is 12 tons, I think we'll be doing a great job. So it's all in good fun, but But, certainly keep that in mind. Is there anything else? Any other reminders, dates?
I was sick all week, and so I didn't do very well with compiling dates. I apologize.
Well, we're glad to see our fearless city manager on the mend, and hope you continue to feel better.
Thank you.
But,
Who do I make the check out to?
Julie Wilkie. Yes.
Should I put food drive?
And we also just take a moment to say congratulations to Lieutenant Robert Ware on his retirement that we celebrated this afternoon. I was unable to make it over there, so I want to wish Lieutenant Ware the best and give him our sincere appreciation for his service to the city of Greenwood over 29 years. The same, I think we've already recognized Lynn in his retirement, but
Some people don't like the limelight. Some don't mind it, So I always ask, if they want to come to council and be recognized, but they usually are like, nah, just fade into the background. But we always recognize them internally as a staff, and so we've had some fantastic staff that have retired over the last 3 years, and
Lynn was with us how long?
37 years.
37?
He doesn't even look much older.
He really
than 37. Yeah.
Wow, I was 5 when Lynn started then.
I wasn't.
And also to Ed Suddeth and his retirement. Yep. Believe it or not, I recall when Ed was a rookie officer, when he had a career change in the late 80s. And he's been great for the city of Greenwood. We thank him as well.
Yep.
Anybody I'm leaving out? Because I don't want to leave anybody out.
That's the 2 most recent retirements there.
Well, most recent. I was hoping you weren't going to say most important.
3, yeah, with Robert.
Well, good. No, we don't accept your resignation. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion by Ms. Hutto, second by Mr. Miller. All in favor of adjournment? Ms. Bowles?
Aye.
Ms. Bartlow?
She said aye.
Mr. Bass? Aye. Motion carries unanimously with 7 votes. We are adjourned. Thank you.